order. Start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming tonight. We'll turn things over for the celebration of excellence to Beth, our interim superintendent.
Stand in for a few minutes anyway. All right, so the first one is the Bcs Spelling Bee Winner. Shepherd Livingston is this year's Bcs Spelling Bee Winner. After several rounds of competition, Shepherd won the bee by outspelling the last remaining team member with the words porpoise and ostracize. Impressive. Shepherd has been a dedicated spelling team member the last 2 years. He even placed in last year's Spelling Bee as a top finisher in 6th grade. Mrs. Warner, the spelling team coach, is very proud of his success and is looking forward to his performance in next year's Spelling Bee. Nicely done, Shepherd. Tell us why you have to stay. Moving on to the Geography Bee winner. For the first time in many years, if ever, 7th grade Shepherd Livingston repeated as this year's winner of the BCS school-wide National Geographic Geography Bee. A high honor student, Shepherd is also involved in the school through participation in cross-country, the spelling team, winner of the 2020 competition, and the BCS Student Council. Active outside school, Shepherd is a competitive mountain and cyclocross bicycle rider. He holds a first-class rank in Boy Scouts and also enjoys running and snowboarding. I am very pleased to inform you that, again, for the 2nd year in a row, Shepherd has earned a spot in the statewide Geography Bee competition to be held at Central Connecticut State University on March 27th, 2020. Congratulations, Shepherd.
Right, robotics is next.
Robotics is next.
Can I have them come on?
This makes sense. It's a lot of reading here. I didn't get to prep at all. I didn't get to prep, so I'm just kind of looking over it. Sorry. Bolton Central School participates in the VEX IQ Robotics program, practicing as a team after school and traveling around the state to compete against other middle school students. The goal of this program is to help students utilize STEM skills by designing and building robots to play in a game-based engineering challenge. A unique facet of this program is that it is collaboration-based rather than competition-based. Teams from opposing schools actually work together on the playing field to try to score the most points they can together. On February 1st, 2 teams composed of 7 students from the BCS Robotics Club attended a VEX IQ competition at Sage Park Middle School in Windsor, Connecticut. Of the 36 teams in attendance, Team Unknown Asteroid Robotics placed 2nd overall. Alex Miller-Davy, Brooke Hahalota, apologize if I said that wrong, I know I did, I'm sorry. Libby Hannon, Brady Fuller, Mateo Garcia, Braden Matta, and Charlotte Romovitz all demonstrated exceptional teamwork, leadership, and communication skills. These skills stood out among their peers as they even earned the Judges Award for Sportsmanship. Because of their hard work and success, both teams competed at the VEX IQ State Championships on March 7th. The team consisted of Alex, Brooke, and Libby, came in 6th in the state. Congratulations to them. All right, now I believe I'm turning this over to Ms. Johnson, the Dean of Students at the high school. Ms. Johnson, you're going to do the introduction.
I am.
Right?
Yes. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Christine Johnson. I'm the Dean of Students here at Bolton High School. Tonight we have 6 members of our Manchester Manor student volunteers. They're going to speak a little bit about their experiences at Manchester Manor as volunteers. And I would first just like to introduce our students and who are here this evening. We have Cam Anderson, Lily Moyer, Colin Nichols, Hezzy Bell, Casey Hammer, and Shannon Cole. I'm going to turn it over to Cam, who's going to give you a little bit of the specifics about the program. Oh, Great, Bethany, come on in. We just started. Bethany is also a volunteer with the program.
Hi, my name is Cameron Anderson, and I've been a member for 3 years, and Manchester Manor started in 2015 as a way for kids to earn community service hours. But for many of us, it ended up being more than that. And for me personally, I'm thinking of going into a career with senior citizens. And I know a graduate who is trying to be a nursing home director, so that was interesting too. And as for joining, all you really need to do is get a flu vaccine every fall, and we meet right after school in the lobby, and sometimes during the flu season, it does close down every Thursday, and just like now, but this time because of the coronavirus. And our main goal is just to engage seniors that don't have the opportunity to engage with people who don't necessarily have visitors, and even if they do, most of them, they don't have the ability to play certain games. Like for instance, I helped a senior for about a year who was not able to play setback, even though she loved it a lot. And it was really rewarding to be able to see her, smile, and just to know that I made a positive impact on her life, even in her final days. And then we play games like setback, Yahtzee, dominoes, and sometimes we paint their nails, which the ladies really like. And that's about it. So I'll turn it to Lily Moyer.
I'm Lily, and I've been a member for 3 years as well, since my freshman year. I joined for not only community service, but it just feels nice to give back after a while. And I started meeting some interesting characters, some women who grew up and was young adults in the 1930s and 40s, and there was this one woman who was an engineer, and that was just unheard of at the time. She went to college and she had such a full life, and it's just inspiring to know that she was able to have all those achievements in a time when that was completely unknown. And unfortunately she's passed since then, but it's very interesting. I love history. I'm an avid history student, and it kind of ties in with everything too. You kind of, know the times, and it makes it even more impactful to know what they've done in their life.
Alright, I'm Kyle Nichols. I've been in Manchester Manor only this year. I joined because my grandfather was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and that's been really hard on me and my family. And so I went to Manor, and I met all these amazing seniors, and their faces just light up when you leave, and it's so rewarding to see that they've had a great time when we go over there. And that's really all I have to say.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hezekiah Bell. I joined 3 years ago. I joined because it was a way to receive community service hours, and I also wanted a way to connect with one of my senior friends. Some of the advice I received from some of the elderly helped me deal with my own life changes and struggles. They inspired me by telling me to keep being myself, keep smiling, and don't let anyone change my person.
Hi, my name is Casey Hamer, and I joined 2 years ago. I joined Manchester Manor because I thought it would be a good way to help the community. Many elderly do not have visitors, and not only do they enjoy the time with us, but we enjoy being with them.
Hi, I'm Bethany Walsh. I have been a member for 2 years,
And I joined because I always help my grandparents, and I felt like it'd be nice to help them with their leave.
Yes, my name is Shannon Cole. Yes, I've been a member for 2 years. I like it because I get to play games with the
And Peter Turgeon is the academic, our teacher leader for Manchester Manor, and he gives up his time every Thursday to make sure that these students have a place to go and that our elderly folks at Manchester Manor are taken care of. So I just wanted to showcase some of the good work that our students are doing in the community, and this is definitely one group that puts forth a good effort, and we're very proud of. So, thank you. Do folks have any questions? Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now Board of Education recognition. Certainly, last but not least, school board members are vital to our public education system. March is School Board Recognition Month, and it allows us to show our appreciation to those dedicated individuals for all the time and effort they devote in support of education in the Bolton Public Schools. On behalf of the students and staff of Bolton Public Schools and the Bolton community, I, actually Superintendent Hecht, would like to thank Chair Andrew Brunell, Vice Chair Sue Pike, Secretary Ben Davies, and members Chris Davey, Ann Decker, Rhea Klein, and Scott Rich for all that you do. Being a member of the Board of Education is a monumental responsibility that really does take dedication and commitment beyond what might be imagined. It should be noted that they are volunteers who put in countless hours in meetings in our community advocating for our schools. I am very appreciative of all the time and efforts, and I'm very excited about the work we have done and will continue to do in support of our Bolton students. The Bolton Public Schools benefits every day from the dedicated energies and time devoted by the 7 members of our board as part of their year-round commitment. We are very fortunate to have such thoughtful and dedicated community members guiding and supporting our outstanding school system. Thank you to each of you for all that you do. In front of you from the board. Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that concludes the celebration of excellence, and we'll be moving on to the regular business portion of our meeting. I invite everyone to stay and maybe make comments from the audience if you prefer, or if not, you can go home and study. There may not be much.
What's the name topic?
That's down there somewhere. Do we have any comments from the audience?
You're welcome, thank you.
It's my understanding that it's short. Get reopened. Additions to the agenda.
Yes, I do have 2. Under E, 2D, transportation. And G7, policy 3160.
Thank you.
And could we also, I don't know if this needs a motion or not, but I was hoping that we could have a discussion about having a second Board of Ed meeting a month, at least as long as the coronavirus pandemic is ongoing.
Yeah, we can discuss that. We'll put that under G8 or, yeah. Policy that can relate to G8. Yes. Cool. Routine business items. approval of minutes. Do you have a motion to approve the February 12th, 2020 BOE business meeting? Regular business meeting, that is.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Abstains? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 12th, 2020 DOE budget meeting?
Motion approved.
Do we have any discussion on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
What was it?
That was the same day.
February 12th.
We had a regular meeting and a business
Oh,
meeting.
then
that
I
day.
abstain, sorry.
There's no. Oh, you can, yeah.
I don't know.
You have to. I suppose you're allowed to vote if you want. I think that that's probably accurate representation. We have a motion to approve the February 20th, 2020 DOE budget meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Anybody?
Sure.
Sure. Do you have any discussion on the minutes of February 20th?
My memory was that Sue had seconded the motion to approve the budget, not Anne, but I could be misremembering, and maybe it was simultaneous seconds.
Probably.
That is probably the case. We can.
I'm fine with it, keeping it.
Whatever's easiest.
Okay. So we're good with keeping it?
Oh, yeah.
As long as everybody's happy, I'm happy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
That passes as well. Let's move on to Board of Ed committee reports. A Kappa.
We haven't had any
haven't.
since the last
Has anything changed?
special meetings. So I'm not, I don't know. We reported at the last meeting what the outcome of the CAPTA meeting was, and it will be presented to the Board of Selectmen. I understand through reading the newspaper that the Board of Selectmen has approved, but I wasn't at the Board of Selectmen meeting when it was discussed, so.
Okay.
So I believe the capitalist, as we discussed at our previous meeting, has been forwarded to the Board of Finance.
That's my understanding as well. Thank you. Curriculum.
Okay. Curriculum committee met to review the new probability and statistics course at the high school, which was really well presented. And also the Ready Math for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the new program that they're purchasing, or considering purchasing. And Amazon.
Finance.
Finance met yesterday, and at this point, the budget is 59% expended. Compared to last year, it was 56% expended last year. There are a number of transfers, and I was kind of hoping that Kristen would go over those, but they are highlighted there for you. She and Kusal are still working out what's the best way to present the transfers to the full board, where we are talking through them in subcommittee. Here she is.
Perfect time.
Thank you very much. Where are we?
We were just reviewing the finance.
We're at finance, and I wanted to know if you wanted to give any detail about the transfers.
I would love to. Thanks. So, in particular, if I could call your attention, please, to the transfers under Operations and Transportation. You will see that we had to transfer monies from supplies to operations to cover shortfalls of various repair projects at Bolton Center School. That included the well pump control upgrade and repair, the water filtration system replacement, glass repair on multiple classrooms in the hallway and stairwell. We have, if you've been to Center School anytime recently, you've seen the very foggy windows, and we have some leakage and we have sealant issues, so we replaced the most dire ones at this point in time. The door sensor on the elevator at Center School broke and had to be repaired. And we've had to do some wall painting projects and upgrades because of the interactive boards in the classroom and what had to happen with removal of boards and addition of new ones. We had to repair the walls and fix that at Center School. At the high school, we had to disassemble and repair damaged vaporizers. We had to upgrade the energy management system to a tracer ensemble. We had a hot water issue with our mixing valve. The smoke detector malfunctioned, along with miswiring and heat pump issues that had to be fixed, and smoke detectors in the ducts had to be fixed. So we had a lot of operational issues that we have been dealing with that were not budgeted for, but nonetheless they've happened and we had to fix them, or otherwise we wouldn't be operational. I hope that gives us...
I take it by transferring money into maintenance, that our maintenance budget is completely spent for the balance of the year.
Correct, and we may have other issues. To be honest with you, I authorized the purchase of some cleaning, like vaporizing machines, where you put the the disinfectant product into the machine, and you wave the wand and a mist comes out and it spreads over everything. So it not only hits the top of the desks, but everywhere that we wave the wand, which is really, I think, a really good idea right now based on what we're facing. We have the product that mixes it, that's in stock. We are on back order for the mister, that's coming. And I've ordered 4. I ordered 2 for Center School and 2 for the high school. So as soon as those are in, we will be utilizing those as well. That is several thousands of dollars, so I can assure you that I'm needing to transfer money as we speak right now. Today, I authorized that. John he went directly to the actual maker of it as opposed to even dealing with, what would be a middleman. So we're hoping that by doing that, we might get those sooner rather than later. You'll see that in next month's. So again, we're gonna need to add, that will be like a maintenance piece. We may need to be adding money to the supply budget before it's all said and done, because I've ordered, and it's already in the classrooms, disinfectant cleaner in spray bottles. And to be honest, the brown paper towels that we use in schools are about as useless as nothing when you want to wipe something up, just being honest. And so we've ordered a lot of paper towels so that I'll offer real paper towels to use. We have not told the teachers that they need to do it. We have simply given it to them should they want to. We have ordered a lot of extra gloves, and we have those available. Oh, you can see my teachers right there shaking their heads, yes. Available as well if they do want to spray. If you've ever been in an elementary classroom on any given day, you'll have a pretty good idea of what that might look like by the end of the day with little people. So, we have that expense. We have had to order more tissues. We have that expense, and to be honest, other expenses that right now I might be anticipating in my head that we may have. I mean, should it get so bad that we have to bring in a cleaning service and not just be able to handle it ourselves, God forbid our custodial staff gets sick, we would have to do that. I mean, I'm happy to come in and clean, and I certainly will do that, but we're gonna need more than just me to do that. And I got some pricing on that today, and that's approximately $1,000 a classroom. That doesn't include the hallways, that doesn't include the cafeteria, that doesn't include the gymnasium or any other large occupancy spaces that we have. So there's that. And I think we're going to be talking about that a little later on down the agenda, which I have here somewhere. Did we make the changes, the additions to the agenda? Did we? Thank you. I'm sorry. I apologize. So that's where we stand with that. So we'll need a motion to approve the transfers, please.
Do we have a motion to approve the transfers from the February budget?
Who said that, please?
I did so.
Thank you, Susan.
I'll second.
Kristen.
Do we have any discussion?
Some questions. So the budget report we're given today does not reflect the proposed transfers, is that correct? Because I noticed that the approved budget numbers for, say, program implementation evaluation is the same, or approved and revised. Last month when we got the budget with the transfers were already reflected in the revised column. I just wanted to make sure that was...
Yeah, I'm not sure why. That's a great question, and without Casal being here. Could we see if we can get Casal on the phone, and maybe we could just get an answer to that? I know she just left, please. Okay.
I mean, it does make a certain amount of sense that the budget wouldn't reflect those transfers until after the board has
Right,
approved them. So
right.
hopefully that's what's going on, but I just wanted to be sure.
Yep.
And then under fiscal services, I'm sorry, not systems management, it shows a budget adjustment of $20,027, but then the note to the side says that we approved transfer of $24,271. I'm wondering where the additional 4,000 is reflected.
Where the extra, what?
$20 in the last column. Increase from.
Right, but the approved budget amount was $208,501. The revised budget amount is $228,000, which is only $20,000 higher, whereas the note says we approved a transfer of $24,000. There's a discrepancy.
It's a great question. Without Casal here, and we just can't seem to get a hold of her right now. So, I mean, I can get you answers to those questions. I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And then for the operations and maintenance transfers, it looks like originally we were projecting an underspend of 11,000. We're approving transfers of about 42,000. So I'm guessing that means we've also eaten up the 11,000 that was projected to not be spent. So you've actually had to spend about 55,000 or so in the last month on repairs.
Correct. Well, or, yeah. I mean, that 11,000 may be in another area, like that could be in electricity, right, or whatever that we may have savings in, so maybe that's why it shows up there as that number. Right now, it depends.
I see.
You see what I'm saying? Because it encompasses there's a lot of lines in that budget book under operations and maintenance.
Right. And then I guess my final question is, you've already made those repairs, right?
We had to.
So I guess you authorize those transfers under the authority and policy 3160.
Correct.
Okay. Another good reason to be here.
Looking at that tonight, exactly. Thank you, yes.
So, how do you want to proceed? Would you like the answers to that? Would we just vote on it and be explained later?
Fine by me.
Could you do me a favor? Would you be willing to just send me the questions and so that I can give it to Casal in writing so that she can respond in writing back? I would appreciate that, thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this? transfers?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
On to, oh, I'm sorry, 2D, transportation.
Yeah, transportation did meet yesterday. We're nearing the end of our bus contract. I think it ends the end of next year, and we are starting to look into that.
Thank you. Item E3, BHS student representative report.
So, all winter sports have ended. They happened last month. And then spring sports are just starting up. Track has already started their preseason at the beginning of the month. And so is baseball. They're starting captain's practices. Softball, tennis, and golf are starting practices in the next few weeks. But the games will be postponed before or after April 30th because of the virus. And SATs for juniors are March 25th, so that's less than 2 weeks away, or 3 weeks. And the dance, the semi-formal, has also been canceled or postponed until the virus has kind of calmed down.
A successful ski trip happened in February as well as one of our best drama productions, The Addams Family. And finally, the seniors had their final capstone papers due on March 3rd.
Thank you guys very much. You, you're free to stay, but if you want to go, it's okay.
If you need to run out,
Thank you
right,
guys
but
very much. Yeah.
All right. E4, community meeting reports. I'm sure there is some.
I attended the last bout of the correct. A legislative breakfast in February, and immediately after that, Craig held a short meeting. Not really too much to report on that. I will observe that this evening, Craig announced that all Craig magnet schools will be closed as of Monday.
I would like to share with the board that effective this evening, the Bolton Public Schools will be closed effective Monday until further notice. I'm hoping that it's only for 2 weeks, but at this point, well, I'm getting ahead of myself for the coronavirus, so I'll stop there and I'll finish when we get down to coronavirus update.
Is there anything else? PTA event, no news?
Cancel.
No big news.
Yes.
No good news. It's just.
Guess what I was wondering about the gala is in fact canceled.
Well, it's postponed.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. E5, the superintendent of schools report.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Goldsnyder, and she has some awesome staff to introduce to us tonight to tell you all about our amazing preschool program.
So this is guaranteed to take your mind off of budget transfers and the virus for a few minutes, because you're gonna be so engaged with these adorable little faces that you see. I'm very pleased to introduce a few members of my preschool team. Katie Coleman is the district's occupational therapist. Amanda Molly is the district's speech and language pathologist. And Kyle Osborne is our early childhood special education teacher. And they have presented they have a great presentation for you. We're really excited about it and really excited about our program. So if you don't know anything about it, stand by, you're gonna learn a lot. And save questions because they love to answer questions.
First of all, thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here to tell you about our awesome preschool program. If you look on the left, that's our preschool classroom. It's quite a busy place during the morning. And we took a picture of our door that we decorated for the Bolton 300. So happy 300th birthday, Bolton, and the kids did all the work, and it was really fun to do, so I just wanted to show that off. So what are we? We are a play and language-based preschool program. We have an integrated classroom, meaning we have students who are typically developing peers, along with students who have special needs. It's a mixed age group, so our students run anywhere from 3 years old all the way up to 5 years old. During the year, that can change. Students turn 4. Sometimes students are a little older and they may turn 6. We run 5 days a week from 8:30 to 11:30, and we follow the Bolton Public Schools calendar. We do offer special education supports to students who qualify. That might be delivered through myself as a special education teacher. Students may qualify for occupational therapy. They may qualify for physical therapy. Often they qualify for speech and language therapy. And sometimes they also require support from a school psychologist or a BCBA, which is a board-certified behavior analyst. And pending student need, we also have paraprofessional supports in the classroom. So our schedule throughout the day, we start with a morning routine. Students come in, they unpack their things, they sign their name to practice writing, and then we start our day with circle time. We read stories, sing songs, do calendar, talk about the weather. Then we move on to centers and snack time. This is the bulk of our day where students are playing throughout the classroom. Everyone participates in cleanup time. Then we do a music and movement before we either have indoor recess or outdoor recess pending our weather. It's all a really fun and busy day. We just had our screenings in Child Find this week, which was a lot of fun. They always occur in March. So we'll talk about our screenings first. Our screenings are used to determine our typical peer models for next year's class. Again, they occur in March. We advertise through posting at local medical offices. We post at the town hall. It's part of our public schools website. And it also goes home as part of the electronic backpack through BCS. Depending on how many students we have interested in the program, we schedule up to 4 one-hour sessions. The sessions occur in our preschool classroom, and they're set up like a preschool day, just condensed into 1 hour. The students come in, we have a little short circle time, we do some centers, and then we sing a song, and they go back to their families. It's led by myself as a special education teacher. Katie, our occupational therapist, comes. Amanda, our speech pathologist, comes, and Beth Goldsnyder participates as well. We do observations. We're looking at cognitive development, language skills, social skills, play skills, as well as some fine and gross motor skills is what we're observing. And then based on screening results, typical peers are chosen for our next year's class. Our Child Find occurs simultaneously. Parents participate by telling us, I have a son or daughter and I'm concerned about their development. So they come in for the screening as well. And we all do the observations, and depending on what the parent concern is, that one teacher may pay more attention, whether it's speech and language. Amanda will listen more closely to speech, language, whatever the concern might be. And then following that observation, we notify parents formally if we want to move forward with having an IEP meeting, or if there's things that they can do at home to support their child's development. So it all depends on what we observe that day, which way we want to go. So, this is a great group of kids, by the way. We use a creative curriculum, and it corresponds with the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards, which is what Connecticut tells us preschoolers should be learning. In preschool, there are 9 areas of development and learning. We teach social emotional skills, language skills, literacy skills. Kids are exploring the arts, science and technology. We got a little mishap with math and social studies. But we're teaching physical skills, cognitive skills, and math and social studies. So as far as social and emotional skills, the next few slides go through each major area, and we kind of pulled out just a couple examples for you so you can kind of see what might fall under each area. We're really working on helping the students establish and sustain positive relationships, which they definitely do, with adults and peers alike in our classroom. And then being able to participate cooperatively and constructively in group settings. I'm going to pass it over to Katie.
So physical. So what we're looking at is those fine motor strength, so all those little muscles of your fingers, your hands, super important, especially as they're going into kindergarten, for those pre-reading skills presented in preschool. And then also you'll see over on the right, the balance skills, so that's physical therapy that usually does that. Sandyville comes in once a week and does a gross motor group, so kids are exposed to that, but developing that through going out for recess, exploring the playground, things like that.
And then looking at language, we've got students in the preschool who have varying levels of language abilities. We've got students who communicate using pictures and symbols and signs, all the way to students who can speak in full sentences. So we meet them right where they're at, and we support them and help them grow. That middle picture right there, those are they're called PECs, which is the Picture Exchange Communication System. That top row is a sentence strip, and those are things that they can use to request for things such as snacks or desired items in the preschool. And then the bottom is kind of an example of a visual schedule for students who need a little bit more structure. That helps them as well.
The next are cognitive skills. The first one is using classification skills. Can they sort out things, match things that are similar? Another area we're looking at is being able to engage in sociodramatic play. Can they pretend? And that is probably their favorite thing to do in class. Dressing up, playing with the kitchen center and the babies. The next section is literacy. This is your traditional language arts skills, just at a preschool level. Really looking at developing knowledge of print and that it's invaluable to them and being interested in it, and also comprehending and responding to books and other texts. And the next one is mathematics. Again, it's your traditional math. Being able to use number concepts and operations. Can they recognize some numbers? Make patterns is the one on the right. And being able to count and understand that one is one object. And we're also working on science and technology, using scientific inquiry skills, asking questions, why does that happen? The children on the left are exploring with ramps and how things roll down. The child in the middle is exploring what happens when you throw a leaf over the fence when it's windy out and when it's not windy out. And then the students on the right are digging into a pumpkin and seeing what's inside and getting their hands on those, the guts of that pumpkin, the seeds, and all that gooey goodness. So just being able to understand physical properties of objects and materials. And the last is social studies. Being able to demonstrate simple geographic knowledge. They really enjoy looking at maps, surprisingly. And globes, and then showing a basic understanding of people and how they live. They've really enjoyed having the police officers around school. Trooper Content has been great. He comes over and talks to the kids. He let them try on his hat, so you can see that there. And then we always have the firefighters from Bolton come visit us once a year, and they loved being able to shoot the water hose this year. That was really great. I thought you would enjoy this because I don't know if all of you get to come to our Veterans Day Assembly, but it kind of goes along with social studies. So we had the pleasure of going to the Veterans Day Assembly, but we tape our singing because they get really shy once they get up there in front of all those people. So.
I needed that tonight, thanks.
I'm glad I could give it to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Kyle.
Oops! Sorry, I didn't know that would do that.
Round two.
And then the arts, they really do enjoy exploring in the art area. I don't do a lot of canned art projects. We do some around holiday time, but really just allowing them to have materials and see what they come up with is the beauty of preschool, and letting them be creative. And they come up with some really wonderful things. And you can watch their drawings throughout the year go from a head with the arms and legs sticking out of it on the left to something that looks like an actual person by the time they graduate and go on to kindergarten. So that's really fun to watch. What's wonderful about our program is we do have a lot of student supports, and I could not do this job without them. So I'm going to pass it over as we get to each slide.
Okay, so just to introduce myself again, I'm Amanda Molly, and I'm the speech language pathologist for Bolton Public Schools, and I'm in the preschool for an hour a day. So I come in and I'm servicing not only my students on my caseload, but I am providing language models to all of the students in the preschool. I typically use a naturalistic play-based approach with my students, so I'm right there on the floor with them, modeling and helping them, use their language in naturalistic opportunities. We use books, we use toys, pretend play, puppets. I also do a lot of therapy during snacks, and I also have some friends who learn through discrete trial instruction, which we'll talk a little bit about in a few slides, and I help support the language goals that are being implemented that way. But I absolutely love working in the preschool, and I think it's so rewarding to help them, develop their speech and language as they grow from first entering preschool to when they leave. And these are just some things on the slide that we help develop that are listed there.
And in the picture, this student is working on developing their language, so they're using pictures of the snack that they brought in today to request more of what they have. It's a nice motivating way to help them learn how to use language.
So fine motor so again, I'm Katie Coleman, I'm the occupational therapist, and there's also Danielle O'Connor, who's the CODA that also helps out. And so what we're kind of looking for here is, well, I feel like I have the funnest job, because we can do all these fun things during centers, and so Kyle and I, we work together a lot to change things up in the centers, go things around holidays or special events that are coming up, to make fun things. So we're kind of looking again those small muscles that are slower to develop. They sometimes can be really tricky for a lot of younger kids. So again, it's really fun to see kids come in sometimes at the age of 3 and then leave ready to go to kindergarten, and how much they've grown, with things that they were really struggling when they first came in. So.
And we do things like putting pipe cleaners. Oh wait, they have a different name now.
Chanel stems.
Chanel stems.
I also call them pipe cleaners.
Also known as pipe cleaners.
Wow.
Chanel stems in a colander.
So if you go shopping sometime, you get a Chanel stem.
Bead stringing, working on buttoning and cutting and drawing and writing.
Trademark on that.
And then Sandy Bell, who wasn't here, able to come tonight, she does the gross motor, so she's the one that does the 30 minutes a week gross motor group. So she helps the balance, strength, overall coordination. We also do, what do we do? The Olympics twice a year.
We do a fun, we do
a preschool Olympics.
Big preschool Olympics at the end of the year as a culminating fun thing to work on all this, to practice and just have a fun time with all the skills they've learned throughout the year. You may not know, but we also have behavior support in our classroom. Sophie Mayer is our BCBA. Again, that stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. She does come into my classroom. She completes functional behavior assessments when we need them to determine the function of a behavior if we have a challenging behavior that we're trying to help with. And that basically looks at why a child engages in a behavior. What's the function of that behavior? What are they trying to gain from engaging in it? She also helps develop individualized behavior plans for students that may need them. She consults with us as teachers all the time. And she helps implement specialized learning programs. One that we are using in our classroom right now, it's called the PEAK program. It's a discrete trial intervention program. What that basically is an extremely structured program that takes skills, it breaks them down into their smallest parts, and then builds from those smallest parts until a student has a greater range of abilities. So it's extremely structured, so you have to say things a specific way, and there's a specific leveling of where you start and how you progress up through a skill. But students, you can see through the bottom on the far left-hand side, this student is working on identifying letters. So the direction was touch Q, and that student had to touch Q. And that's working on letter identification. The next one in is match, same. So the direction was match, same, and that student is matching a blue balloon to a blue balloon. The next one was, they're working on non-identification. That student was asked to touch shirt. So that student is learning what articles of clothing are called. The last picture is not discrete trial. That is just another tool that we use to help students who may struggle with behavior. First we're going to do this, then you get to do this. And those pictures can change. And then the top picture is also another way we can help students with behavior, and that is a token board. First you do this and earn all your tokens, then you get to do this. So that's a Knights and Dragons token board. We usually tailor that to what the child's favorite thing is. This one student likes Knights and Dragons. So, and that's the end. Any questions for us?
Great job, thank you very, very much. Well, we had a question, I apologize.
So do you have a birth to 3 program as well?
We don't as the public school, no. The state has birth to 3 programs, and if a student is in birth to 3, they may then qualify for special education under the public school system, but the public school does not do birth to 3. We only start at 3 years old.
Those students, if they're from Bolton, would come to your program?
They have a transition, yeah, possibly. There's a transition meeting that needs to be held before they turn 3. So we do a transition meeting, and then we have a PPT if they're going to come for services.
Do you have many students like that?
It depends, it changes every year. Some years we have no students, some years we have 4, 5, which is a lot for both of them.
Yeah.
So it really varies every year.
Thank you, that was a great presentation, thank you.
Do we have sufficient capacity for the number of students who are applying each year?
As far as typical peer models or special education students?
For both.
For both. Right now we have 1 classroom, and...
Are we turning away students?
Yes. Yes, we are.
And
unfortunately.
is it a large number each year, or?
It
depends
depends every year how many kids are staying, how many 4-year-olds we have staying on for their 2nd year. So it really depends. This year we had 13 kids for the screening, or 14 kids.
Around there, yeah.
Somewhere around 14 kids came for the screening, and we may be able to take maybe 8. We might be able to take 8 this year, which is a lot. In some past years, we've been able to take 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Depending on how many kids, because we also have to leave seats for students coming in from birth to 3. So we it gets projected out up to a year and a half or 2 years prior to the child coming to us at age 3. Birth to 3 lets me know that there's somebody on the horizon who's receiving services. So we always leave a couple seats just in the event that they come and qualify.
So what happens to those special needs students who can't get into the program?
Special needs students have to get into the program. The program was primarily designed for kids with IEPs, so it's a reverse model program. So we have the typically developing kids are the peer models, so we fill with them. And we have to start the year with a 50-50 mix. So if we have 6 kids with IEPs, we have to make sure we have 6 kids without IEPs to start the school year. So the kids, we always have to anticipate that we're going to have a couple of new referrals through the year through our child find process.
Okay, so when you said you had 14 applications but could only accept 8, those were, the 14 were for the peer positions?
Correct. Yes, typical peers, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by law, we're required to find a space for any child who qualifies as a special needs child, is that correct?
Correct.
And what would happen if that number, you have 1 typical peer for each special needs child? Is
To
that right?
begin the year, we're required to start at 50-50, but after the year goes on, it doesn't have, that's the same for any classroom.
So what would happen if, say, we had 15 children who were special needs? Do we have the capacity for, a classroom that size?
We would have to make the capacity, because we would either have to program here, or we would be obligated to outplace them.
Outplace them.
So we would make the capacity to
We're
do
doing
it.
our best to meet the needs that we have.
And luckily, knock on wood, we've never had 15 refugee
Right,
kids come into the program.
Everybody knows
But that's
that.
why we always do try to start the numbers off a little bit lower at the beginning of the year, because we know that over the course of the year, either students will move into district, or child find children, or birth to 3 kids that we don't even know about, whose parents may not give permission for the state to let us know about all birth to 3 kids. So we always leave room.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you
so
Positive school climate update. Ms. Johnson and Ms. Sapp.
Next.
We're just gonna go. We're gonna start. All right, so we're here to talk with you about how we keep a positive school climate, and we have major objectives. So we teach and reinforce positive behavior. That's something that happens throughout the district. We call that our Pbis model. We also emphasize the importance of kindness and character, recognize excellence, maintain a school culture of positivity, and foster a sense of community. And also, most importantly, all of this work leads to and supports our portrait of a graduate.
So at Bolton High School, I started the year meeting with our 9th grade and 10th grade students, and we actually took a tour of our school where I reviewed the expectations in different locations of our school, and I was also able to review our student handbook with those students. I do a modified version with some of our upperclassmen, but I start with 9th grade and 10th grade at the beginning of each year.
We continue with this similar model at Bolton Center School. We start at the beginning of the year. We do it, even Mr. Giard and I get on the bus and we do the bus lessons with the students. It happens in the cafeteria, happens mid-year. It happens whenever a student needs to be reteaching. We want our expectations of behavior to be very clear. Also a special note, they look a little young there, but Bolton Center School, our 5th graders get the great pride of being safety patrol. They came last year to celebrate that, so it's another moment of modeling, but they also acknowledge students in the morning who are showing those expectations, and the other students love getting a BARC ticket for that.
So for emphasizing the importance of character, new this year in our connections block, we have students that set both personal and academic goals. We revisit that once a month, so we check in with the students to see how they're doing. As always, our Bigs and Littles program continues to partner with our underclassmen students as well as our new students to Bolton High School, planning activities throughout the school year to support their needs.
A large component at Bolton Center School to meet the needs for all of our students are our second step lessons. Those again happen from kindergarten through 8th grade, and it's a tailored curriculum that we've really found great success in being a problem solver, thinking about having empathy. And our middle school students, they really get to experience it at an age appropriate level. It changes. And it's consistently done throughout the building, and we've noticed a lot of great response to that. We also look for catching students with BARC tickets, which are used in different ways. And both schools partner with the Sandy Hook Promise, and we do the Start with Hello Week, which they've moved up into October. And we do a lot of activities at Bolton Center School, having people just recognizing the importance of smiling at someone, having a conversation with somebody, trying to, it's hard at the middle school level, but eat with somebody different than you normally eat with, having those moments to learn about someone else so we're all feeling included.
We had our student council and student body look at what activities they wanted to participate in September for Start With Hello. And most recently was Say Something. We had our students agree that they will not be a bystander, they'll stand up for bullying, and if there's something uncomfortable that they see, they will say something with a trusted adult in our building. And as you can see, we have, those are a few of our pictures. We have a bulletin board out in the main lobby as well with some more pictures of our students. Oh, one other thing, if you have a chance and you're passing down the main hallway, our Pbis team monitors this each month. We put new student names with some positive achievements, both academic and personal achievements that our students have accomplished throughout the month. At the high school, we recognize our students with some activities during Connections. And this year we had our teachers vote on 2 students that they felt each in their classes that they felt demonstrated student improvement. We also have had some of those students come down if they're recognized for really being a leader and following our school rules. And most recently for quarter 2, we recognized all of our general and high honor students.
At Bolton Center School, we have 2 display cases as one way that you can quickly see some recognition when you enter. So we recognize those for both academic honors, sports and club honors, as well as at the elementary school level, we have our top dog, our little dog house there, which students get recognized. And a lot of times if you walk the hallways, those tickets might be hanging outside. But every 2 weeks or so, the awards change and people can stop and you could read what and the reason why people are getting acknowledged. Those students get called down and we really enjoy celebrating why and they're going above and beyond in different places in the school.
So we're also participating in a door decorating contest that's recognizing our Bolton 300 and new to Bolton High School. We're in the planning stages of a Pbis student team. We've recognized that we have our teachers that are involved, but we'd like to get a student team together that will meet with administration once a month to address some of the cultural issues at our school for positive school climate, as well as some maybe academic recommendations that they might have. Just to hear that student voice a little more and see what we can do to support some of their concerns at our school.
And at Bolton Center School, we have several school-wide assemblies, kind of a tradition between Veterans Day, the Winter Assembly, and the end-of-year assembly. And we are in year 3 of our Busters Community Showcase, which has been really great bringing together the students are becoming more and more leaders in the showcase this year, so we've been really excited about that. Our door decorating contest, the preschool's 300th birthday one, is adorable. And they're going up, and the middle schoolers are really stepping up theirs. And it's just been fun to see how they're learning and thinking about bringing the history of Bolton to life on the doors. So it's great when we have that common theme throughout the building. And we have fun day. Field day is always a great one, and especially when we have the upper grade students support. They help run a lot of the events with the elementary school students and our walk-a-thon.
Obviously, we like to recognize our staff for all the good work they're doing. And our Pbis team has hosted 3 luncheons. We are also hosting something called a complimentary cart. We do this once a month where we make some coffee and a baked good and our staff takes postcards and they write complimentary notes on their students and we mail them home to the parent. That's been received very well. Our parents like getting something nice said about their child in the mail. Actually in the mail. So we started that last month and tomorrow is the second time we'll be actually hosting a complimentary cart. Obviously staff appreciation, our student council gets involved and we try to recognize our staff every day during our staff appreciation week.
We also at Bolton Center School have a variety of food opportunities to celebrate between lunches. We try different themed things throughout the year. A fun one that's become a little bit of a tradition is March. We do a special potato one. I know I said that last year. It's a very exciting one. Also, we have been starting something new. Is this year at the beginning of each faculty meeting, staff members are given the opportunity to put a little shout out using what's called a Padlet. And it can be anonymous, but it's nice to see and have those moments for people to put it up in writing. It's just up on the background. It's been great. So we do so many things, but we just wanted to remind and show that everything we do to build this sense of community is to support our work at Portrait of a Graduate, to make sure that we are helping them learn how to be those citizens, to have that understanding of where they are in their community, and to support each other.
Thank you. Any questions?
What data do you have to shows the effectiveness of these programs? And have you tracked suspensions, bullying incidents, and seen a decline since we've instituted PBIS? And
I can speak that tracking our data, I look at the data. And I have noticed a substantial decrease in out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, and detentions this year compared to last year, as well as the year before. You know, we always have areas of improvement, and that's something that our PBIS team addresses, and we also address that, you know, each week during our PLCs.
Daryl?
And data as well, but also we do a lot of anecdotal activities. For example, we did one last year where who's the staff member that you trust that you can go to, and students each wrote down a staff member in the building. We looked through all of them. We found like 2 or 3 where there wasn't somebody, which was alarm bells a little bit. So we do some personal activities like that, but also the data analysis.
And one thing too is looking a lot at the data that we take in. One thing that we'll also notice is we'll look really closely to see if it's a frequency of a student. And one of the number one things that when we're responding and supporting teachers, but also in our world, is to help them learn from it. So we do a lot of analyzing our data to make sure that the same student is not having the same struggles in the same location. We look at, where are these things happening? Why do we think they're happening? And we work on them with that to help with those.
thank you.
Nice job. Thank you very much for highlighting all that great work. Next, we have Mrs. Malinowski for the Next Generation Accountability Report.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. In your packets, I'm hoping that you do have a chart, a spreadsheet that looks like the data piece. Did you get that? No, I need to make sure you have this. So can you make sure that somebody gets a copy? Can you get? You want me to make? Yes, please. Okay. Because I can get started, and that's just the actual results from each school. You have the district's report. Sorry about that. I thought the copies were there. That's why I was checking to make sure. Been one of those crazy weeks of piles.
No worries. We're getting copies.
So yeah, we're gonna get the copies to you so we can speak specifically about each school. Glad I checked. So each year we do have this report. This is the big overall data, the big picture data. The purpose of this data is to track our progress, help our schools and district make improvements, look for our supports, recognize successes, hopefully promote transparency, and to also make sure we're satisfying the requirements for that. There are 12 indicators. And these indicators here and show our academic growth, our achievement, our growth, and please note that on your presentation, that year, I'm sorry to catch up before I sent this, when they first started. So you actually have the first year of growth is on your presentation in front of you. I believe it's 15. So they've been looking at this for a few years now, so we now have a number of years of being able to look at growth data. Assessment, participation, absenteeism, and the list goes on to make the point that we don't just look at one thing about a child. We're looking at an overall picture, best that we can through data for it. It's just another way of looking at students. Where you see a small h, that small h, I'd like to clarify that because that does mean a high needs population, and that is a group that includes low-income families, English learners, or students with disabilities. So there's multiple categories that fall into high needs. So when you hear that, many people might make some assumptions. It's a larger group than we sometimes see. Sometimes it's large enough for us to get some information, sometimes it's not so much. So we'll talk about that as we get into our report. So in this report, we get 2 scores. We get an accountability index score, and then we get a performance index score, and those are levels. That's just how we read that. Our next chart is our district report for 18-19. And as you orient yourself to this report, you'll notice you'll have your index rate, which we had talked about. You'll see what the targets were, what the state had identified. Thank you, Christine.
the points that we earned, the maximum number of points, the percentage of the points, and then compared to the state for that. And Christine's passing out the district as well as Bcs and Bhs. The district report compiles both schools together. So you will see data on the district report that you may not see on the other schools just because of the different populations for that. Our overall district score this year is, on the percentage of points earned, that's the one that we look at, is a 79.1 for that. New this year, you will notice on the district report there is a 2E and 2F. That is a new category where they're looking at the overall proficiency for essentially English learners. We will not, at this time, see a score in there. We do not have a cohort large enough. You need at least 20 students to get a cohort in a certain group. We do not have a large enough group. So when you see scores missing from that state in any of these reports, it means we don't have a group large enough to meet the state criteria. Otherwise, the information could be considered identifiable to the public. So having a blank there doesn't hurt us, it doesn't help us, it's a nothing. And we'll talk about the individual reports. So on this chart, this is yours, I still no, thanks, sorry. So you have the entire chart in front of you. The next page continues with the district report where it talks about our gaps. So we have no gap across the district for English language arts, math, we continue to have a gap. Science, no gap. We don't have a graduation cohort group large enough to give data. They also track our assessment participation rate, and we're doing great. Students participate. I have highlighted on the presentation just a comparison, or not even a comparison, or just I'm highlighting our two schools and where they fall. This year, once again, Bolton High School was identified as a school of distinction for student achievement. And also great improvement. So last year, we were not identified as a school of achievement, but our great improvement this year. So, nice to have the little mark again for that. I also would like to notice that the categories are how we look at the schools. Bolton Center School also is at a category 2, which is your second highest rating, which is an improvement as well. So those are some nice overall general statements about our school. So if you'd like to take a moment to look at the individual schools, this would just be your time. Your next page is the high school for that. So you'll see lots of gaps in our data because I can never emphasize it enough, and you'll hear this almost every time I give a report based on that's related to our school.
Actually, every time you're going to hear it.
You really are. Our groups are small. We're a small town. We have small groups. So we always need to take our data with that in mind. You will see larger fluctuations because we have smaller groups. Our testing data, the SAT data, is based on one class. Some years that might be 75 kids, sometimes years that might be 85 kids, or more or less. So it really will go up and down. And so sometimes we'll have a cohort that will give us information, sometimes we won't. So for big picture data, when they talk about transparency at the state, for big districts, yes. For us, we go digging. We can get that information because we have the individual student reports. So it doesn't help when I come to the table and say, oh, here, because I can't give you that information. So please know, just because on some of the information, if it's something that there's student data around that, we can see that. It's just something we can't report publicly for that. So, questions with a high school? Just a quick. Yeah, Chris.
So you mentioned that at the high school, because of how small the cohorts are, that we're not going to see info about high need students.
Correct.
Yeah, there is info about the chronic absenteeism among the high need students. Do you know why they're included in one category but not the others?
So, I don't. Because you're talking about, so with absenteeism, you're looking at a larger group than just, yes I do. I can answer that.
Yes, you can.
I can answer that. Because absenteeism is looking at the entire school. Your chronic absence, so you're not just, and the SAT is only looking at one class. So when I look at like your ELA performance index, I'm talking about 60 some odd kids. But when I'm looking at my absences, I'm looking at the absences of the entire school.
Of all.
Of all 300 something students versus,
Right.
Does that help?
Yes.
Thank you. Give me a moment to get all of my pieces of 12 indicators for that. Another piece I do want to point out here with the high school, I just want to make note of this. If you look down to, my numbers are cut off, but it's down with the preparation for CCR, percent taking courses, and the percent passing the exams. So we actually do have a nice opportunities, we've been afforded nice opportunities for our students to be able to take some courses that afford them some college opportunities. And as we've talked about in the past with the MCC, us losing those opportunities, please know that that may impact our number next year. So that had nothing to do with anything we could do. We've been trying.
Well, we know in fact that it will, because we have 2 courses this year that previously were articulated through MCC, and this year we were not allowed to articulate them through MCC. So we already know in next year's data we will be seeing
a different number.
A different number. So just just as an awareness, and we are still continuing to work with Goodwin to try to provide alternative options to our students for next year, and that would be, be reflected in the following years.
Yes, and we're also diligently reaching out to any other area college that we could possibly work with. So we're looking at that.
What supports are in place? I noticed that one of the areas where we seem to be lagging the most is in percent passing exams for the college level courses. What supports do we have in place to help those students?
So the big piece with that, it actually comes down to where our overall score gets hit on that particular area. The essay, so in order to get one of the criteria, you have to have hit the benchmark, the state benchmark for both math and ELA. And I'm gonna be honest, it's our math. That is, so that's the work we've been working on. That's gonna be at the end of my report of where we need to continue to work. You have to get both of those benchmarks, and that's one of our lower scores, where for students passing both. So it's not the passing, so if you were in one of the MCC courses or your AP courses or any of those courses, our students are doing well there. We can see that data. So this is actually the bigger tier 1 work, the math work that we've been talking about and working on. So that's where we are with that. That's how we're attacking that score, because basing on going deeper into the data, that's what it's telling us. Yes, Ria?
So I'm looking at the A indicator, ELA index all students, and then I see percent points earned, A 3.4, and the state average is 9. Really?
Yeah, so it's, again, so you'll see in my recommendations at the end of the presentation, the ELA is certainly one that we'll continue to work with. Please remember that's based on this year's class, or actually last year's class for that. So every year we're going to have that continued work. We're always looking at how we support those individual groups, but our numbers, we really fluctuate. When I look at the trends.
There's 1 or 2 children.
Right.
Yes,
right?
so I just point that out. So yes,
changes our data compared to when you look at the state's data, looking at
thousands.
I'm surprised the state is 90.
Yeah.
So
yes, it does.
BCS, all ready?
Yep.
And BCS piece. As you can see in this data. I'll give you a moment to look, and as you'll see, there are more areas where we do have some scores. Go ahead, Chris.
So you mentioned that the high needs student cohort is actually 3 different
groups.
I mean, I guess it could be overlapping, but it is 3
Certainly.
groups. And I believe the state does report the sub-scores for the individual groups to you. Have you looked at whether there are deficits in one group over versus another, and
Well, so do you need sub-scores by our free and reduced versus special ed versus, is that what you mean by those 3 groups? So I think that's the first thing Beth and I do when we get our scores is, hey Beth, let's look at scores. It's one of our favorite summer hobbies when that comes out. Yes, we do. We do look at that, and again, it comes down to knowing our individual children. With those pieces of it and the individual factors behind it, the harder piece with that, to be honest, our free and reduced is not so that is a harder number to put a finger on. That's confidential information.
That's
there
not
are very
information
few
that's shared.
people who are allowed to even know who that individual is.
It's not allowed to be.
Right, that's a federal
guideline.
Yeah, so, we sign away all sorts of waivers to even know who's on that list. So that is, so Beth and I look at that list and then we make some decisions, so because just very few people are. So we do look at that, again, so
the
that,
need of each individual
so we
child.
can really look at individuals for that. So yes, we do. For
And
that,
we're
and I
looking
would
for
like,
trends wherever we can find them.
Yep.
Right, which is really to your question, right? And we are consistently looking for trends.
Yeah.
What does it tell us about the individual child, but then what does it tell us about the overall picture and our overall programming? And Sarah's going to speak to that momentarily at the end.
Yes, thank you. I would like to point out that one of our areas of increase at BCS, since you brought up the high needs group, is that's actually an area of growth. When we did a comparison, that was an overall area. So if you wanted to know a trend about that particular group, that was an area of growth from last year. For that, so overall, any other questions from BCS?
Just for my understanding.
Certainly.
ELA academic growth for all students, for example, there's points earned 58.7.
Yeah.
And then the state average is 59.9. What is that?
So growth is looking at, so every student each year earns a scaled score, the big number score. And based on your scaled score and your grade, we anticipate that Rhea will grow X number of points the next time she takes this test. They put that number out. So every individual child has a target score. And so that is how you're doing on hitting to your targeted score, to hit that score. So if you're 1 point away from that score, you don't hit growth. So while it's very good and we do look at it, and last year that was actually an area of huge celebration for us. So this is again where our small numbers, when you put it into a big picture, is kind of, the transparency I question in small districts. I'm just going to be honest. It's really hard for us. We really have to then dig in, what does that mean? So certainly that's an area we've had quite a few meetings on. We've brought in specialists. Are we missing anything? Who can we get who's a few points away? We're really interested in, are people showing growth? And the ones who aren't showing growth or going down, those really worry us overall, because to be knocked a little bit, it could be a 1 point miss. So I do want to share that.
And it could have been, they didn't feel good that day.
Right.
There's that factor too, right? It's 1 point in time.
Yeah.
And yet.
Right. So, but we do look.
And you don't have a gap.
So, correct. So for...
That's good.
Yes, and so that's the other thing I do want to point out.
Right.
For it, when you're looking at your gaps, the gap indicator, the nose, right? Gap achievement? Did I miss? We'll have to make, we do not have a gap at BCS. But yet at a district, when we put all of our students together, we have a math gap. So math is still our area. So let's go on to where we want to grow, unless there's any more specific questions. Yes, go ahead.
Does the district score account for all students who take the test in the spring, or only those who've been there the whole year?
All students who take the test in the spring. So if you showed up the day the test came and you could start taking it tomorrow, you betcha.
And so, as co-chair of the Assessment and Accountability Committee for Superintendents in the state, Ajit, who is the Chief Performance Officer for the state, is our partner in that committee. And we have been asking for the last several years for them to create a database for us to see longitudinally our students who have been with us since the beginning versus the whole kit and caboodle. And that will be...
It was just released. It was just like last week. It was just released. So
Which is good, we haven't, we need, with all due respect, we're in coronavirus season. And so we will be digging into that because that's important data for us to certainly examine, because that tells us information too that's important definitely for us to know.
The webinar about it hasn't even happened.
Correct.
And at first glance, I was able to shoot Superintendent Heck just brief, hey, I can see this, and this is what we can see quickly. So I think it will be helpful for when we do some data analysis, actually to your point, for some of those other.
So I'm pleased we pushed for that because that's good information for us to have.
Yeah, actually that's more helpful in this
Than
report.
this.
Yes, it is. So as I've talked about already, we're going to continue with ELA and math at the various levels. It's just, we need to. Science, while we did well first time out the gate in science, I'm going to be honest, we're going to just have to stay with science. That science test is hard. The science curriculum is really solid. So while we came out strong because we've been working towards it for a while, we want to continue that work towards science. We talked about the college and career readiness to continue networking with the area colleges and universities, as well as this ongoing look at the alignment with the SAT. So going to your question earlier, Chris. And then back to absenteeism, we are always working to make sure all students can have access to an education here at school, because this is the best place for them to be, at the appropriate setting for them. So we're always working very hard, and I cannot say how many meetings I know that our staff who's sitting up there attend to make sure we're meeting the needs of all students. So we will continue on that trajectory for this next year, and we'll see what next year brings us.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
just a couple quick ones. So the data is based on the SBAC for the elementary kids and the SAT for the high school?
The assessment data is, yes. So the performance data is, and then you have your other data. So when those are and then the science is the NGSS science test. So that's a separate test. Growth is looking at your growth within those assessments. The English proficiency brings in any data they have on EL students, and that's called the Last Links assessment, which our students take, but again, our cohorts are not large enough. We certainly know that data, and Mr. Powles, who is our person in charge of all that, keeps us always informed as to where we are with that and working to make sure we're meeting the needs of those students. Chronic absenteeism is the absenteeism of all students, and we have our committees who are diligent working with that. The career and college readiness piece, we've spoken about high school graduation and secondary entrance. And then physical fitness is a physical fitness assessment. So there's lots of
pulling together a lot of pieces.
Lots of pieces for that.
Okay. My second question is for your growth data. If you have a child who is not meeting your targets for growth, what do you do about that?
Well, that's when, so we have our whole SRBI process at BCS where we're meeting. So that's one venue of where we have these opportunities. We begin in the summer where we have people come in to,
Staff members.
staff members come in to crunch the data, because actually we don't get the growth data so our students will take the test soon. We won't know about their growth data until October, pretty much. So we have a couple staff members who come in and crunch the data, because we know their calculation, this is a target, and you run Excel and we can figure that out, and then we compare. And so from there, we then identify our students who we'd like to target. So we start the year, we go ahead and we start the year, and BCS is very diligent about setting the year up with a meeting so the teachers know the first day starts off with a meeting. And Daryl, why don't you talk about how you set your teachers up?
We'll look at like the
to start.
sub-tests within Smarter Balance, because it breaks down the sub-scores. And then we'll also look at like correlating assessments that we do during the year, like the iReady assessments. Are students performing? What did it look like leading up to Smarter Balance? So there's an analysis from many different angles. Was it a bad testing day? But all along the way, they looked like they should have met. And what of the sub-tests could we strengthen in an SRBI process? How those things can strengthen students in those areas.
And then we just keep circling back to talk about our students individually. And that's the great side about being small.
So decisions are made, right, just for new board members as well, whether or not classroom teacher is going to focus on certain things for in-class focus, right, for tier 1. Tier 2 would be part of an intervention type class, specifically geared towards those areas that need to be shored up, if you will, so that they're where they need to be. And then tier 3 instruction is far more intensive than the tier 2 or the tier 1. And that's usually in very small groups, often with, say, like a reading consultant, or, right, and with some additional supports in the classroom as well for both tier 2 and tier 3 students. So it kind of all depends on where the student falls and you know, what the situation is.
And that's for all students.
Correct.
That's available for all students. You don't have to have an IEP, a 504. You don't have to go through any special process. You go through our process. This is what we do for every child. Any other questions?
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Giard, BCS schedule for 2020-2021.
There you go, Daryl.
The purpose of this presentation is to take a look at our current schedule, potentially moving to one schedule, one starting time, one dismissal time. Where this came from is part of the work we're doing for the 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, is looking at daily operations, scheduling, all of those pieces. And one of the things that we decided was very important is school schedule. If you look at this next slide, these are all the schools in the state that are set up similar to us, K through 8. We called them, we found out their dismissal, arrival times, asked them a bunch of questions to kind of figure out how they run, and all of them are on a single schedule. A couple of them used to be on a split and then transitioned over to a single schedule, but they are all currently on a single schedule.
In the work that we did, we looked at a lot of reasons why. Why should we do this? Why should we put this forward? One that came out was looking at that idea that the middle school students can sleep a little bit later, be more alert for those earlier periods. Also, increasing our staff ability to run things after school. We have a lot of elementary teachers who are really interested and want to do things after school, but are limited by that ability. So that was a benefit. Also, that idea of having a convenience for parents who have kids across those two age ranges. And right now it's running with no additional cost, which was a big point for us to look at. We also talked about that, what would the impact be for us having that K-8 spectrum when we're running professional development, when we're having those meetings, when we're having that collaborative learning time, so now that we're all on one meeting time. Currently, we would then be able to work, moving away from, we have 4 bus loadings currently, so we would be moving to just 2. As well as there would be an impact, we do know, to what time sports games would start, and as well as just the sports schedule. Another point is that K-8 students would be on the bus together, but currently many middle school students take the elementary school bus in the afternoons. So that is something that happens more often than many know about. So we do have that already happening at the school.
And the most common question is, what's going to happen with the buses? Can we fit all the kids on the buses? What's going to happen with the bus times? So Superintendent Heck to myself asked the bus company, can you do an analysis? Is this even possible? What would the bus runs look like? What would be the bus run times? So on the left-hand side, you can see our current BHS first pickup, current BCS first pickup, and on the first one, all the way to the left, it says current BHS. That includes our current middle school kids. So a good way to look at this is look at that first column versus the last column, and that would show you middle schoolers and what time they'd be getting to school, or getting picked up.
Getting picked up.
So 6:20 and then 7:34, so it's anywhere in the range of 40 to 60 minutes later that they'd be getting picked up in middle schoolers.
So when we're looking for an 8:10 arrival time to begin school for 8:15, so that gives a little wiggle room from 8:10 to 8:15 for, any late pieces with a bus or a tree down in the road or whatever the case may be, to get the to start school for 8:15, right? No, we currently start school at
8:30, 7:30 and 8:30.
7:30 for middle schoolers, 8:30.
So we're proposing to have the high school start even earlier than that?
No.
Same.
Okay, because
No.
the proposed BHS up there says 7:15.
That is what it is now.
So arrival time
Arrival
to
time.
Bolton High School is 7:15.
Oh, the school does,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, then unloading and all of
Right.
And
And we were able to carve out a little extra sleep time for some high schoolers depending upon their bus run, and the changes to it based on moving the middle schoolers off the high school run, as you can see in the gray column. I mean, it's not a lot of time, I'm not gonna lie to you, and one or two buses, it's no time, but we still be able to craft a little bit once we know specifically.
I guess I'm still confused. Would we be aiming to have the buses arrive at BHS at 7:15 still? Or would it be
Yes,
later?
no, still same start time for Bolton High School, because we need the same end time in order to participate.
What time does Bolton High School start?
Joe, can you speak to this, please?
The buses arrive anywhere between 7:10, 7:15 from all three towns. Actually, the out-of-town bus is a little bit sooner. Students are released from the Commons at 7:20, and the first class begins at 7:32. So this really doesn't change our morning routine at all.
So why wouldn't... So kids are getting to school at 7:15, and then they have 17 minutes before class starts. Could we not take advantage of the bus not having to get to center school and have the high school start 10 minutes later?
Right. We have to have an opportunity.
Have the bus start. Sorry. Have the bus arrive 10 minutes later.
We have to have an opportunity to assert rights. Not that all students take advantage of that, but we have to have that built into the. We can't have a bus arrive at 7:30 and start at 7:32, because then we'd be disadvantaging those students. So that's part of the built-in time.
And then with BCS, we're going to have kids arriving at 8:10, but the class not starting until 8:30.
No.
Did we have it 100% even solidified what potentially the one schedule times would be? These are just kind of, could we make it
We're
happen?
thinking 8:15 to 3:15 is what we're thinking,
Yep.
correct? Because one of the issues becomes the after-school activities and the sports, right? And so we need to end in enough time so that we can at least have sports before it gets dark. To be honest, right? Because you're not going to any middle school that has lit fields, that just doesn't exist. So Daryl did a good job of canvassing all of the teams that we play, and we would be able to actualize it. There may be an instance or two where kids have to leave maybe 10 minutes early from their last class, but it wouldn't be every time. And this would enable them to still be in the league that we play in and to play the sports if we did the 8:15 to 3:15 piece.
Any other questions on the buses?
Thank you, Joe.
So we put a survey out to the parents, and this was the results. So as of right now, 68% are supportive of the idea of
Well, the survey's closed, so
the
these
survey is closed.
are the results.
These are the results. Support, and 32% said no. Several of them made comments, one saying that no, because I need to know more information. So we had that moment, and we got a lot of great feedback from the parents, and information for both yes and no's.
This is very important, bringing this forward tonight, because we thought we had a pulse, but this kind of reassured me of what I was thinking based on having conversations with parents, but this is a very important piece as well. We went through, because the first question was yes or no, would you be in favor of a single start and dismissal time? And then the second one was open-ended, where parents could give some questions, or why did they vote a certain way? And some of the concerns that were raised were, these are the most common ones, I would say, 90% of them were on these 4 topics. Buses with K-8 students together, as Ms. Saffron mentioned earlier, it already happens a lot with sports and clubs and homework club and kids going from one thing at 2:30 and then getting on the 3:30 bus with the little kids. It happens all the time. We have really no issues. So it's just, really people didn't know that that already occurs. A lot of parents said they would not be in favor if we were going to one schedule to make it a 7:30 to 2:30 time.
We agree.
Because then that would have the little guys coming in at 7:30. Exactly. This is a valid one that we've already talked about, but it was interesting to read through all of them because maybe there was something that we missed, but we've already thought about this one. Is the parking lot may be very crowded at arrival and dismissal now because everybody would be arriving and dismissing at the same time. So we would be having experts come in to do an analysis and give us suggestions, recommendations of how to use our entrances, exits the best that we could. We have an idea of what we would do, but I'd want to get the professionals also there to say flow patterns and traffic patterns and what would be the best, especially with school safety as well. We're using the least amount of exits, that makes sense, but just really get those recommendations as well.
So is that an issue of the fact that all the teachers would be arriving and then the parking their cars at, or that you're gonna
No,
have more
teachers would be in the same spot, but amount of parents showing up to come in.
Because it could actually be less.
Correct.
I mean,
Now,
I think for the preschool,
I think it's
one of the main reasons you have so many parents driving, they don't want their kids on the bus at 6:30.
correct. I think it's likely we'll see more, maybe ride the bus, because everybody can get on together and mom or dad can go to work.
Which would be great, given how much we pay for those buses.
Yeah.
Another concern that was raised was the start time for sports and clubs, so that's why we can't miss the schools that we play against, and it would be a small amount of time with occasionally having to leave early for like an away game.
And then some of the positives that came from the feedback, again, align with things that we are also looking at. So we're seeing that common trend. A lot of that, we're looking at the logistics of having multiple students across the grades in a family, as well as that later start time. And one that came up also was thinking about those early release days that we have, the benefit of knowing that both of my children, whether they be one in 6th grade and one in 4th grade, are leaving at that same time, and I'm making a plan for that early dismissal day, that it's a common planning to not figure out what to do with one, then have to go back for another, or who's going to be where. So, and then quite a few parents commented that now they're happier that their soon-to-be 6th grader is going to be on that elementary run rather than being with the high schoolers that they're currently with. So, you know, it goes both ways.
Well, logistically, the first bullet, just to elaborate, that was probably over 50% of the positives was I have a kid in 3rd, 5th, and 8th, and right now, being a working family, trying to get everything together. Now my middle schooler could help with the younger ones even, and people went into that much detail with what they were saying. Any questions?
Love the hands.
That's actually our students from here, so.
I love it. I know.
No, they won't know.
Yeah, they're all, yeah.
Now we can do that.
Oh, thank you for that brief respite. I really appreciate that. Questions for Dale, Jess?
So what is the next steps?
Right. Are you proposing that for this next year?
Yes.
Yes.
We are.
2021.
So do we need a motion to...
I'm not sure that we actually definitely do, but I'd really like you to, whether we need to or not, to be honest. Because we are looking for the board support in this for sure.
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to make changes to the BCS schedule, so K-8 is all on the same schedule.
Second. Do you have any more questions?
you very much. Thank you. So, Mr. Giard, I would ask that maybe, on Monday when we're the only ones here working, that, we work on crafting a message out to families about this.
Perfect.
Great, thanks. Thank you, everybody. I would just like to say I did not get to thank you all for your service because this is Board of Education Month. I do appreciate so much all of the great work that you do and the amount of time and effort that you put into making this the best possible school system it can be. And we really couldn't do it without your support. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your tremendous service that goes without recognition and certainly without a lot of pay, without any pay, let's just be honest, and a lot of hours. So your gift is just a small token of our collective appreciation. So thank you very much. And that concludes my report this evening.
Excellent. We now move on to unfinished business. Is there any that is not listed here? How about new business? G1, healthy food certification and exemptions.
For the last 2 years now, we have been healthy food certified, and I'm requesting through our food service director that we do that again. Last year, we received $4,768 by being healthy food certified that we would not have received otherwise for our program. We've already received our first payment this year of $2,751, and we expect our second installment to be paid out in May. It is her recommendation as well as mine that we be healthy food certified again this year, as it does bring in additional revenue for our food service program by merely following the guidelines. And then I would ask that you then, if you would be so kind as to approve that, to then approve a motion for exemptions, because we need those for all the great activities and things that happen after school hours as well, please.
Really two motions.
Yes, I would like it to be two separate motions, and they have to be exactly as I have them there for you. That was the guidance given by the state.
The wording of the first one is a little odd.
I totally get that, and I sent back to the food service director that, are you sure I can't modify this so that it reads a little better? And I was told, no thank you, would you please say it exactly like that so that I can then send the minutes that directly say that to the State Department of Education. And there you have it.
Who wants to read all that stuff? What was the I can say all the words? Someone would say so moved.
There we go.
Okay. I would like a motion for healthy food certification. That person would move that pursuant to CGS section 10-215F, the Board of Education, our governing authority, certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction, not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State, page 3 of 6, whatever that might mean. Connecticut State Department of Education, Department of Education. Is that what we want?
Yeah.
Will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
So moved. Friends.
Okay, do we have any discussion on those words?
So it just seems like the second paragraph is going to contradict that one. Is that what that's doing?
Well, the second paragraph gives us flexibility before and after school hours, which is what we're seeking. So like when we have a basketball game and the kids want to sell Gatorade and chips, they can do so. And the state allows that exemption if you approve it. Correct. Correct. Yeah, no, I know, and all I can say is I'm sorry, because it's not my shtick.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure right.
You have it totally right.
How about all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Lovely. We would now love a motion for healthy food certification exemptions. That motion will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. A regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
So moved.
Would you care to discuss those words? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Let's move on from that.
Thank you, everybody.
To G2, first reading.
We've had a very busy year.
We sure have.
Hi, everyone. So, science. General science has come forward. As we know, the Next Generation Science Standards came out a few years ago. Our 9th grade science texts have not changed in many, many, many years. We were hoping with the revision and the support from CREC that we didn't know what resources we would need, because in the K-8 science world, they actually moved away from textbooks in the science. Come high school, they just went right back to, yep, we recommend that you have a primary source. So in looking at, and our science department really diving in and looking at what's there and what the standards are asking, where we're hoping our students to move, they really feel in good conscience they would like to ask for 2 books to move forward for our high school 9th grade math. Thank you. So we have 2 levels of general science in 9th grade, and we really split the class about in half with that. And so we would like to, the science department has asked that we consider 2 texts. This text being the physical earth and space science for the more general population where we want everybody to access the science and to make sure we're meeting the science standards. Sorry, Scott, can't say over all that great math stuff. And this is one text that they have moved forward and reviewed and presented to the curriculum committee. There is a second text called the Integrated Science 3rd edition text, which would be considered the honors level text. We would like to have access to both classes, both texts, because actually there are sections of this text that will also be able to support students in the general class as well. And vice versa, there's layout in this text that could support, well, this would be the primary text for the general level class, and that's when we primarily go home, we still have access to the resources from it, likewise with this book. So we would like to move forward for a first read and that so that it's available for the public to come review. The science texts we would like to move forward for our general science, so for general level as well as honors.
We propose a cloudy text Or
So right now I just split it I split my estimated cost at about 50-50. It's going to be less numbers than that. This year we needed approximately 75 books. I just don't know how our numbers are going to fall. And so when I came forward to try to figure out what I'm going to tell you about this, we're looking at between about 12,000 to 15,000 for the two texts together, depending upon how many of each we need, because of course the this particular text with the workbook is $99 a text. The advanced, the honors text is $185 a text.
And we have this budgeted in the choice budget.
Yes, so we've had this money set aside.
But we are going to buy enough books that each student has access to.
No.
Oh, that's right.
No, thank you. So we would have enough so that whoever's enrolled in the general science class would have enough for this class, enough for that, with a few extras. So should we come to a unit or a child in another class, that text is available for that particular piece. Because the books are aligned well enough that as we're doing units, they're going to be able to be commensurate.
So we're not buying both.
No, correct. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
I'm not buying 75 of each. Yes.
Are they digitalized, or if they were computers?
Not a strong one with these. There are digital resources, but that would not be the primary.
So you won't be using that? Is that an extra cost?
No, we're not going down with that piece. They have some online resources in both areas, but that's not their primary, as some of the other aspects are.
Any projections on how long we would want these to be our preferred text? How many years we should get out?
Let's do this. And they don't change any standards, and I don't anticipate they will. These new science standards are pretty amazing. These we will foresee until there's some major changes in science. Our last text is over 15 years old. We hold on to texts around here.
For a long time.
My next hope would be we'd be looking at the digital resources. You know, that's our reality. We are sitting in this in-between world of wherever we can. And the free, OERs, open education resources, which are at the college level, that's moving our way. We see it coming. We're just not there yet.
Well, it's not that we're not there yet. They're not there yet.
Well, the whole world for public
right,
school.
in general, with science standard resources, because the standards are new.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the public, just making sure and vetting those.
They're vetting it, right? So there are things out there, but we're not just jumping on just because it's out there. We want to make sure it's been vetted and it's a good resource.
So it is an extra cost to get anything digital? Is it an extra
No,
cost?
we will get the digital aspect to it. It's not as heavy as some of our elementary texts like I'll be speaking about. Great questions. So I would ask.
So that's the first read. So astronomy.
Yep. That's go forth. Astronomy. We have been looking for 3 years for an astronomy text that would be appropriate for our high school. Of course, our current text is basically a glorified math text. Our teacher, Kevin Hartman, has been doing an amazing job. He has a past life working with NASA, so that's a great resource that we do have in Bolton. So he has been able to supplement the work we've been doing. He's finally found a text that he would get his stamp of approval and move forward to the science department as well as the curriculum committees to review as far as a text that hits the relevant issues of astronomy. For that, we've done an analysis, went back after some conversations. We run about 15 kids a section, so we'd be looking to purchase approximately 15 texts for about $2,400. Budgeted for this money in open choice for that, and that would provide enough texts for students to go home, as well as having a few extra texts. We always need a few extra texts, period, for various reasons. Like the other ones, there's some online resources with this, and that's not the primary access point. Yeah.
What grade level is this?
This is an elective for students, so it's going to be mostly your juniors and seniors, and sophomore can fit it in as well. Freshmen, it's really tough to get about those into the freshman schedule. Mrs. Saffron would really like to join me at this next request because she's so excited. So the next set of books that we'll be moving forward are the Ready Math continuation. She would. I will. Sure. And this is just so last year we adopted Ready Math program or work texts as they were called for Ready Classroom K through 5. That has been our primary resource for our elementary math curriculum. And after we waited a year because the company has revised the middle level program. Last year we were leaning towards wanting to push this program forward. However, they did not have a complete online piece as they do with the elementary right now. If you have or know of anyone with elementary students, and as you've seen in some of our previous presentations, it's a very vast online resource. This will now have that vast online resource for our middle level learners, which is just an incredible advantage for us because we will now be able to differentiate at the middle level in a way that we have not been able to do. So we are asking to move forward with a first read of this particular text. Work texts, if you do want to take a closer look, if you're one of the first people to come to the Board of Ed to preview a text, this is something we'll need to look at online because as they have not put out, actually April is when they're anticipating to release their shiny new text, but these have all the information, they've just reorganized it, and then the online piece is already there. The other beauty of this program is that every year it gets updated and we get that. Is there anything else you'd like to add about why we would like to move this forward?
We've seen just huge growth with our students and our staff especially. Just in sitting with first grade teachers today in PD, one of the things that they are noticing, our staff is noticing, is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics a few years ago put out the best teaching practices of math and what you need to do to teach math well. And they're sitting through and analyzing them, and they notice the program, it fosters and supports all of that. So it's really hard to help teachers say, this is how to teach math well when the program doesn't help them do that. The teachers now can notice and say, oh, I do this because it helps me. So they're seeing that. One thing with this, and a great reason we waited a year, is they are updating it. So our upcoming sixth graders, their core working text will align similarly. They'll move up with a text and a format that is exactly the same as they're getting right now in that 5th grade. It is extremely similar, but there's just going to be that enhancement. So this is Ready Mathematics, which it's not out in print yet to look at. We would be getting Ready Classroom, which is what we currently have K-5, which is even better. So it's coming in. They're extremely responsive to the needs of teachers and staff, so it's a wonderful program.
The cost for this will be a $5,070 cost for this particular program. Now that is
Per grade level.
For all 3 grade levels. Total.
I just want to be sure they understand.
5,000, and so when I went back and looked at what our typical ask is for our math budget, with supplies either at budget time or as we try to support things through grant. This is actually a little bit less or equal to what we're always looking at because we were always trying to supplement with programs that weren't matching. So we saw a pretty large reduction even after a first year of the rollout at the elementary of asks for needing to supplement with other supplies. So we're anticipating that this will just keep us pretty much equal to where we've been with our math budget. So we're not anticipating this creating a
We're very excited about this addition, I'm not going to lie to you.
So you said that it rolls naturally from 5th to 6th grade. What about the 7th and 8th graders?
Glad you asked. So we would like to purchase this for all 3 grades because really, as we move up, it's going to be a combination. This is a very rigorous program compared to what we have, and while we have worked to align to the math standards, what our current 7th grade teacher is currently doing, because we have had access
our teachers actually do have access to this program now, even though we haven't bought it, they don't have all the bells and whistles. She's actually already been integrating aspects of it, so we'll see a more integrated approach in 7th and 8th, and then slowly move into, then the next year it will be all ready, and then the 8th. The other aspect that this allows us to do, which we're even more excited about, we will be able to identify for all students, really at the end of this year, have a really solid feeling of who would be able to be, who can we start identifying towards that, our typical pre-algebra group, and start grouping or assigning appropriate lessons and learning to a group to really start advancing their learning earlier.
Because they're ready for it, identified ready for it.
Right, and the program does that easily for all staff. So we're really very excited about being able to do that earlier, because what we are finding with our current practice is that our current 7th grade is hitting all the 7th and 8th grade math standards. If we're targeting a child to go into Algebra 1 for 8th grade, they're essentially doing 2 years of heavy lifting in 1 year. It's really brutal. Our kids who can do it are doing it, but it's really an unrealistic ask. And we're seeing that with our upper level kids. When we were talking earlier about one of the areas we're looking at, this is one of our action plans. We need to start earlier, making sure we're strengthening all kids earlier, and we feel that this is a program that will allow us to do that in a better way than what we currently have. So we're very excited about that aspect as well.
That's one of the things I found really exciting about this program, is the ability to, because we have a lot of programs in place for special needs students who may be struggling, but this program will really help with them, but it will also help with those who are really advanced. The other really exciting thing that Sarah explained to us in curriculum was that teachers, say in 8th grade, who's using this program, but may have a student who's struggling, can look back and will have access to the 7th or 6th grade materials and can pull a lesson that might be at a slightly lower level or slower pace, and use that with a student who is struggling to help bring them up to speed, rather than just relying on only the 8th grade materials.
I was just to speak to the question earlier about the growth and helping all students grow, is we've been finding in our K-5 is that the program and the way that the iReady diagnostic and the Ready classroom is set up is to help the teachers know how to move all students. So all levels are given something to work for and to aim at. It's not just trying to move populations that are maybe an intervention, or it's all, we're pushing all students and finding ways to support them. And that's what's really important. We're looking at now we can continue to send that to middle school during those win periods and those times that we have to help push students.
And I do want to be clear, we're talking about the computer aspect of this. There's a lot of teacher ability as well. So if I know that Jessica is really one of my star students and she's just not performing for whatever, for whatever reason, that teacher still has the ability to very easily to adjust. Or maybe Jessica's that student that, hey, I want to bump her up just a little bit because she needs that little bit. We can do that. And that's another lovely aspect about this program, where many of the computer-based programs, you're a little bit tied by where the program sets that track. There's a lot of teacher interaction with this, and I find it to be really, they call it blended by design. They really have acknowledged the teachers very well in those pieces, the students. So these will be available at the Board of Ed for anyone who'd like to come.
So does each child get one of these binders full of, how does this work?
Each student will get a work text. This is the older model.
This is a work text?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have, so every teacher does get a large teacher resource. Yep. This they don't get new every year. It will be after substantial change with this, they send it to us, but if the lesson is updated, all of those resources are also at a click of a button online, so the teacher doesn't ever even have to carry this home. They can access everything at home online. Likewise with all of this. And then there's all the additional online resources and games. Those are the hard things.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, probability and statistics
Yes.
course.
Right now? Okay, everybody should have a copy of that. I want to make sure. Yes, okay, good. So, it's gonna bother me, I'm sorry.
Jess, can you come put this together while she talks?
Yes.
She's struggling with
It's
that.
really gonna bother me.
Sure.
It's
I
gonna
know.
bother me. It's bothering me.
Our first thing.
Yeah, right.
Sure. It's bothering me that I can't really see Scott. It's just bothering me. So, again, math, as we talked about earlier. What the math department at the high school we've been talking about for a few years, but also has really come forward as we're really looking at the SAT data now that the SAT has been our assessment for high school, that we need more electives in math for students. So we have a general pathway for all students. But the reality is, not everybody loves math. Or maybe has some of the skills that are now being asked, because honestly that Common Core is really very aggressive, even up at the high school, and our current kids didn't have a nice role on it. We did our best at every district, but these kids didn't grow up from the very beginning with a more rigorous program. So we want to make sure we're touching all kids. The SAT, about a third of that assessment is now probability and statistics. And probability and statistics, if you're not taking AP statistics, is pretty much chapter 13 of every math book. And while our high school teachers don't just follow the math book as it is, when you're teaching the geometry class, and they may have a probability or statistic aspect, they're working to rearrange, and they're now finding that as they're rearranging, well, maybe it's better if we just also offer a class. So it's not that we're going to remove it from all the other classes, it's just not going to have as heavy of a focus. So we can really do Algebra 1, we can really do Algebra 2, and really do our geometries, and offer a probability and statistics as well as an elective. So this is a class that would be open to all students, again, freshmen, it's going to be a special freshman where we can get an elective into their schedule, but sophomore, juniors, and seniors, it would run in the fall. It's a half-year elective. It is, again, for all level students, for those students who might want some support in mathematics, would probably be recommended by a teacher today. This would be a great class for you to take. Or honestly, some of those kids who want to go into AP statistics, this course was built backwards from the AP statistics, so this will give the students a solid foundation. So should they want to access an AP class, and our hope is maybe perhaps opening that door for more students to be able to enter into that particular AP class. So those were all the reasons behind wanting to offer this elective. The math department got together and developed this curriculum. And we are, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Do we have a motion to adopt the probability and statistics course?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion?
How many students?
Go ahead.
How many students do you anticipate taking this on?
We don't know yet. I mean, so if there are electives, our electives run between about 15, could be as small as 6 on a first year, out to 15 to 20.
Are you going to have to purchase it?
Oh, thank you for asking. Great question. No, this was written with the assumption that we will use our current resources. The teachers have been charged, though, if there is a better resource out there, to please take a look. Because, again, a curriculum should be written for understanding the standards. We can do this without any purchase, zero purchase. Yet we may, and again, we've spoken, we would be looking at choice funds to be able to support that purchase, should we find a text that we would like to move forward. So you might see me next year for that, but not at this time.
I had that question, and also, do we have a teacher for this?
Yes, we do.
In-house?
Caitlin Warner.
In-house.
In-house, and she is also our AP statistics teacher, and she's really loves this.
right on it.
Is there any more discussion, questions, comments, concerns, observations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions?
Thank you very much for your support. Thank you to the subcommittee for their hard work. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Full 2 months. Thank you. Thank you, Anne, for jumping in.
G4, resignations.
We have one resignation this month, Sherry Roboto. She's a paraprofessional, sorry. VHS donation. The high school received a very generous donation of tools that are valued at approximately $14,000 that were donated to our tech ed department, and tech ed teacher is quite happy with
Very happy.
these new tools, I might add. So written a nice thank you note, and we're very appreciative. Do you want to add to that, or?
It's a nice combination of a couple of items that will replace some of our aging pieces that were not part of the building project and older stuff, and 2 things that we have never had access to before that'll give chance for students to be exposed to equipment that we would never have a chance to purchase and offer them. A Mrs. Price out of Glastonbury, kind of a friend of a student, kind of made a connection with Mr. Antunes, kind of reached out to us and after the passing of her husband, and really wanted his joy, his very beautiful, fairly new equipment put to good use. So we were very happy to help her out with it.
Okay.
Excellent.
Very
All right.
exciting.
On to the moment we've all been waiting for.
Yes, I'm certain of that.
G6.
So, so for several weeks now, been in contact with our Eastern Highlands Health District. I've been receiving updates. Been in contact with Jim Rupert, our Emergency Management Director. Our team here tonight and I have spent a tremendous amount of quality time together over the last couple of weeks, trying to be as prepared as we can for what could possibly may happen. On Monday, I participated in a emergency preparedness phone conference with the governor, with the head state epidemiologist, with the commissioner of education, and heads of all of the other main departments overseeing this health crisis in our country and in our state. Information was shared at that time. I did share a communication. I've shared now 4 communications with families over the course of the last 2 weeks. The last being this evening, and that is why I apologize to my late arrival to the board meeting, but made the decision to close school for the next 2 weeks, and it possibly may be indefinitely, and it will depend on the spread of this virus. We had a call this afternoon at 4:15 with the Commissioner of Education by way of an update for superintendents after the governor's news conference today at 3 o'clock, announcing additional information. The virus is spreading from the western part of our state towards our way. The state of Connecticut has not utilized the closure of schools to stop the spread of a virus since 1918. And it is clear with this virus, based on all of the information that the CDC and the state epidemiologists and doctors and state health organizations have at this time, that the more proactive we are at the beginning stages of infestation, the better off we're going to be. And that has been seen in countries that took a rapid proactive approach versus a country like Italy that did not, and now the entire country is shut down. So my response this evening was in response to that, to the information that we heard, and in concert with other communities around us. So I'm just going to read you the list. Vernon, Bolton, East Windsor, Somers, Ellington, Enfield, Windsor, Granby, Stafford, Suffield, Manchester, South Windsor, I believe Hartford. I know Crack Magnet schools have closed, and I believe the list is going to continue, and I'm certain that there have been others east of us where that's happening. Hartford is, that I may not know yet because my phone's been blowing up and I've been trying hard to pay attention to the presentations tonight as well as to what is going on in the outside world around me. So, that being said, I also want to share with you that our staff, led by our administrators, has done a tremendous job at looking at whether or not we were going to have the ability to do distance learning when and if we were going to close. And while I think that our staff has done a great job in the last few days of pulling together resources, really the last 2 weeks, right? And in examining what we could do, we have to also be concerned about equity and accessibility. And so we were given 2 options by the Commissioner of Education on Monday. One was, should we need to simply close, and one was to apply for a waiver from the State Department of Education to provide distance learning to our students. However, in that waiver, we had to assure that we were providing equity and access to all our students, that we were addressing all of the needs of our special education students, that we met the requirements of our contracts, and both myself and the chair of the Board of Ed would had to have signed off on that. In good conscience, I cannot tell you that we could do all of those things at this point in time, and it is incumbent upon us to be sure that we provide equity to all students. So having said that, our staff is going to utilize the resources that we have put together to be able to provide, supplemental materials that parents, and students can access at home during this period. The governor issued a waiver, quotes, to the 180-day rule that if we have to close and make up days, we have to make it up to get to 180, or we have to make up days all the way to June 30th. And then if we still haven't gotten to 180 by June 30th, those additional days will not be required to be made up next year. Because that happened to a district, and then I think it was last year or the year before. They didn't get in 180 days by June 30th, and the following school year, they had to make up those days that they didn't get to. So, at this point, we are closed for the next 2 weeks. Resources will be put out there to the best that they can by staff tomorrow, being that it's a very short amount of time. Initially, I had thought that we would have an early release day on Monday and be able to do some prep time for staff, but that is just not possible any longer. I am not going to suggest that we take away, it's not my recommendation to take away April vacation. I think that we're going to need to open our windows and clean, should we even be able to come back to school in 2 weeks. We will likely, if we only have 10 days out, we will be going till what it is. I have to look at my calendar, I'm sorry. So if we did just 180 days, which would mean that we could end school on the 15th, and that is when high school graduation is planned for anyways, because that's 180th day of school, we would end on Monday, June 29th, as the 180th day of school. I recognize this is not ideal, but I think it is imperative that we do everything that we can possibly do to prevent the spread of this disease, because this is very, very serious. And we are taking a lot of steps. You heard me allude to some of those before about cleaning in the building and getting extra cleaning supplies, extra actual cleaning apparatus, so that we can address the issues as they unfold. That's what I have for you this evening.
So, do we need to know something that do we need to change graduation date? Or
No, because you made that decision, and at that point in time, that was the 180th day of school. Can if you want to.
no, I'm just.
No, I know. But because we made the decision at the point when we made it, that was the 180th day of school, and by the state law, we're allowed to do that.
What if we're still under the restriction of gatherings less than 100 people?
I don't know. And to be honest, we haven't quite gotten that far yet in our discussions, but we have 2 weeks now to talk about it.
Got some time.
Yes, we do.
What are the staff expectations during this time?
There are no expectations for staff to be teaching or communicating or grading papers. It's just like if it were a snow day at this point, because they're going to have to make up the days.
Would there be any
at the end
ability to move professional development?
We have already had all of our PD days, unfortunately, because I would have already exercised that. But this is different than when we had Snowtober a number of years ago, right? That was before we had a lot of professional development days. It was before we had vacations, so we made adjustments. I wasn't here then, but I know in my own district, we made adjustments in the school calendar because it was early enough in the year. I think probably Sue could speak to this too, right? Where days were taken away, or teachers did PD days at the end of the year, or on their own time, or whatever the case may be. But we are not, in that situation right now. The other thing that I now need to examine with John is about how I cool down Bolton Center School the last several weeks of June. Because that upstairs, if we get some really hot days, so we could be looking at early release days, in the middle to end of June, depending upon what the weather looks like then. Hopefully we're back to school. So we're examining, we'll be taking a look at that next. Right now we were trying to get through the first part of this crisis. So, did I leave anything out, staff, that we've been working so hard on this? I want to make sure I've left nothing out.
No, the teachers have really been working hard, the staff was
doing a great job.
It's really, people have been really knowledgeable.
So there is school tomorrow?
There is school tomorrow. There is.
Are the kids exhibiting fear or
Limited, quite some questioning. At the same time, I think they, like we, saw the handwriting on the wall, and we've had some of that pre-vacation kind of restlessness. We've had that in the building. We will take some time tomorrow to clean our lockers out, make sure we packed up our stuff, talk to our AP students that they will be doing some work, right? Because they've got to get to the AP test, and the AP teachers will communicate to them how they'll be providing that. So we'll be doing some of that busy work tomorrow. We'll have a busy day.
So we do have the SAT day that we have scheduled for March 25th.
5th.
And
Yep.
our plan now is?
So that's the original date that we selected, and there's a date in late April that is the backup day per the College Board, but they have given us some latitude, and we'll be communicating with them next week that we won't be here on the 25th, and we'll stay tuned to see when it gets in. They've been good, though, that they used to be very, very rigid, but they're giving us some flexibility for this.
Daryl, you want to speak to your building?
I couldn't have worded it better. It's really kind of that pre-summer high energy, whether it's out of a little bit of fear from what they're hearing at home and on the news, or just the unknown. So yeah, there's definitely a higher energy in the building.
I have a communication that I received this evening that I will it's sort of like Beth, right, a talking points sheet on how to talk to your kids about this that I'll be sharing with families tomorrow. To be honest, I needed to get the word out and get down here, so.
So you've already sent out to the
I have already communicated with the parents that I have closed schools effective Monday for 2 weeks. It actually says indefinitely, but hopefully for just 2 weeks, based on what's happening.
Chris, you want to mention smarter balance testing as well?
Yes. So currently, Smarter Balance testing is allowed to go to June 3rd. Ajit was on the conference call today with the governor and did say that if in fact we need it, they will seek to have that extended to June 30th if that's the place where we end up. All right?
And then I'm assuming we're going to adjust accordingly.
And we will adjust accordingly as things as it stands right now. We're not scheduled to start until after April break. So.
Two questions. First, what are we doing to ensure that any students who are on free and reduced lunch are still able to eat?
Yep. So I'm working on that. I've been working on that all day with Heather. There are components where we need some waivers from the federal government, and the state is awaiting that waiver. But in the meantime, we've devised a plan. Administrators worked on information today. We're not sure if we're going to be doing like daily, come daily for our free and reduced lunch students, or if we're going to supply them with a few days worth. In my inclination and my preference would be for a few days worth. We just have to be sure that we're going to be able to do that. So we're working on getting that set now. Hartford, for our choice kids, CREC is going to take care of getting the word out so that, how they're going to get to Bolton to get it. So that will be provided in Hartford at various locations. Our Columbia students, one of my calls on my way home tonight is to the Columbia superintendent to talk about what that will look like, and will they, would they kindly take that on there so that the families don't have to travel to here, but if they, or listen, or I'll go do a drop off, whatever needs to happen. So we are working on that piece as.
My second question is, are you and the administration going to continue looking at a distance learning option in case we can't come back to school in 2 weeks and it looks like it's going to be a month or 2 months?
So I'm not sure. I don't know how else to answer that. This is a very influx situation. I did communicate with our staff tonight before the decision was made to close that currently we're not going to be utilizing a distance platform at this time, but that may change, I don't know. And it's really going to be contingent upon, how we get to staff, and can they come in, and there's a lot of pieces to it, along with the equity and the access piece for students, because we're having to, because we're not a one-to-one district, and we don't provide a laptop or a Chromebook for every student. Although we've done some surveys and information's been sent out and we've been gathering that information. So I guess that's a stay tuned. That's not a closed discussion, because I did put that out to staff today that this is what it is for the next 2 weeks. And because that was the guidance from the State Department of Ed. Although they've offered the waiver, this commissioner straight out said today, they are urging us to simply close because of the equity and the access issues that it presents. And it presents a host of legal issues as well.
I can't imagine how stressful it's been for you and everyone else, so thank you for your hard work dealing with this among everything else that's been going on recently.
I appreciate it. Thank you for saying that. Any other questions for me on that? Okay. Policy 3160. last year, we had some good discussion about this policy and what we felt should be the amount not to exceed is on the back page of the policy for the overall budget transfer by the superintendent. At the time, it seemed really reasonable, the discussion that we had, and that amount currently that we have in the policy equals $28,632. Shipman and Goodwin, our attorneys' model policy suggests that it be 5%. I thought that was ridiculous last year. I understand why now they have a much higher percentage than what we agreed to based on what we're facing and what may have to happen in the next coming days and weeks. So I'm asking that you take into consideration changing that and amending this policy. I don't think it should be 5%. I think that's too high for the amount of our budget, but I feel that it certainly needs to be more than 0.2%, based on what I have described to you this evening that we're dealing with.
I guess just a little context. Before we amended it to 0.2% last year, it had been $10,000, I think, and it had been that way for
a long
decades. We went to 0.2%, as you said, it was
$28,632.
That was cumulative amount
Well, it reads like it's any single transfer, but I'm trying to seek further clarification on that from Rebecca because I think we still may need to clean this up a little bit. And we talked about that in our meeting the other day, yesterday, it seems like about a month ago, even about our categories, because I need to just confirm that are these categories that are recommended? Because if they're only recommended, we'd rather it be categories that fit how our budget's actually laid out, or are these categories straight out of statute? I just haven't had 2 seconds to even look at the statute. I'm sorry, but I haven't. So I have 2 weeks to have this conversation with Rebecca, I hope.
But as the finance report tonight shows, just recently you've had some issues come up where Superintendent Hecht has had to make transfers that probably, if you look at each one as an individual, fit within the current policy, but if you were to say, well, it's all, you have to treat it as one lump sum, then it wouldn't fit within the current policy. And given what we are potentially facing, she mentioned earlier having possibly to pay $1,000 per classroom for cleaning, if worst comes to worst, and in order to do that, she needs the flexibility to make those transfers as necessary. I mean, it doesn't mean that we are not going to be informed. It just means that if something comes up 2 weeks before we're scheduled to meet, she can take action without having to wait for us to meet. So I would recommend that we go from 0.2% to 2%, which would be roughly $260,000 for our current budget, if you can transfer.
Is that a number that you think will work for what's going on? I think so. I hope so. Okay. We can always revisit, but okay. Let's go with yes.
I guess I'll make a motion then, so
Yeah.
have it all formal. I move to amend policy 3160, paragraph beginning, the superintendent is authorized to make such transfers as necessary as the urgent need for transfer. The third line of that paragraph to modify 0.2% to read 2.0%.
Second. Further questions and discussion?
So we're looking to have it take effect immediately.
Yes.
But we are at the same time trying to get clarification on clean up the wording so we can revisit this.
If we can, yeah.
Better. Supporting that as long as we are going to go back and revisit it.
I had this conversation with you this morning about this topic, and I've been thinking about it, and I wonder if in the past we had the threshold of $10,000, and in the last 4 years we have had to approve like once or twice a year maybe, and we increased it to this amount, and that is a significant amount of money for our district. And I wonder in the future if we can trust our superintendent to whoever that may be in the future, years down the line. This is a large sum. And it would seem to me that only in dire emergency, global pandemics, for example, that we would have to even consider something like this. And I wondered if a temporary change, particularly if we have a lack of clarity about exactly what this applies to, would be more appropriate to get us through the crisis, maybe say through the end of the year, for instance. We can revisit the amount, because to me 2% seems like a lot, especially when the chair or other people from the board have to go to the Board of Finance, who is questioning much smaller transfers all the time and defending it. The transfer issue, as you know, has been a touchy one when we go to present our budget. So, I personally would feel more comfortable with a temporary easement, and then we can consider, perhaps with hindsight to this, what was necessary, and what we think may be a reasonable amount going forward is. 5% is just wackadoo. I think that's crazy, but 2% is more reasonable. But maybe it's still a lot, because I don't, aside from extreme circumstances, I don't see why that would be necessary. But how does anyone feel about
We'll do policy revisions, we just put contingency.
Well, and I think the language is clear. It says urgent need for transfer prevents the Board of Ed from meeting in a timely fashion. I think that caveat that you're concerned about is there, that safety net, whatever. I don't think they can exploit that.
Well, the urgent need for transfer preventing us from meeting in a timely fashion is could be loosely interpreted. To me, that's not a very, like, should we say, maybe we should try, if it is above a certain level, try and have an emergency meeting.
My guess is that we would, in almost all situations, try to do that, but I guess I try to think of an example where the staff comes into the high school one morning and discovers that, the heater is blown up. And it's going to cost $200,000 to replace it, and it has to be done right away. It's over winter, just after winter vacation.
Well, that would be an example of extreme urgency.
And I think
that's what this paragraph is intended to do. It's not for routine transfers.
And I think the fact that the original friendship memorandum was 5% indicates that's probably what's happening around other districts as well, and to give them leeway if needed.
Well, I'm but one of 7 people, but if the motion stands to permanently change this, I will be yes.
think there's some merit to what you say, Andrew. I too had the concern about how we would be viewed by the Board of Finance. And since they trust us about this much, it concerns me. I think making it a temporary clause at least will get us through the crisis period, and then we can revisit it.
If you were to make a friendly motion to amend my motion, I will accept it, so that we can vote on it. It'll be the easiest way to move forward.
Why don't we just plan to revisit it in June? At least get us through this crisis. Right. And I'm going to be honest, you guys. If the 2% is really too big of an amount to swallow, and you got to make it 1% because you got to sleep at night. You know, do what you got to do. But then, if I call and say I need an emergency meeting, you got to come. I don't know what else to say, right? And I love you all dearly, and I really appreciate all the work that you do, but sometimes it's like herding cats.
Well, possibly with the benefit of hindsight at the end of the year, we would say, you know, this worked, or this didn't work, or this was an appropriate amount, or it wasn't. But I don't see us having that amount of money to spend on it.
We don't.
So.
That was going to be a question of.
So there,
we don't.
Not that much.
So how can we authorize to spend what we don't have?
Then we have to go for an ask. I mean, if we get in that
Well,
position, that's you know, then
Still-
we are going to have
still
to have a
get us to
meeting.
a point where, okay, now we're over
But-
budget, but
Correct.
we have to do this.
Right. Then we got to go for the ask.
So I think it would be good to have it amended such that it's to the end of this academic year, this school year, right? And whether it automatically hurts or we have to have a meeting or other houses. Yeah, be supportive of that to make sure that you have what you need to do in this time.
So why don't we just amend it to be to re-examine it in June? Does that work or no?
See, so I'm just trying to
I know.
parliamentary procedure. I'm drawing a blank on whether I can amend my motion or it needs to be.
I think you
Would it be
can amend
cleaner
your
just to
motion.
reject this one?
Yes.
Did we even have a second?
Make it.
I don't know. Did we
Yes,
even?
We did have a
yes,
second.
We did. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So I'll amend my motion. And, are we okay with 2% or? We're okay with 2%. Okay, so amend the motion to
Make it a temporary to remain in effect until the June Board of Education meeting. How's that, everybody?
I guess Ben would second that change since he seconded.
I accept that change.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Policy is changed.
Thank you.
And we did add another topic while you were away,
Okay.
which is G8, additional meetings. And, since this is yours, over to him and ask for some clarity on what you are proposing.
So what I would propose is that until the coronavirus crisis is resolved, the board meet twice monthly, just to help facilitate communication between the board and the superintendent, and also perhaps ease the public's concern that we as a board stay on top of matter, and doing so in an open public forum where the public can attend and ask questions if they so desired, but
Publicly gathered.
and I realize that we have a lot of meetings coming up with Board of Finance and presenting a budget, Board of Finance hearings, meetings, so assuming they're gonna go forward, I guess.
Exactly.
What's gonna happen there, but assuming that we are still allowed to meet, I would propose that we start doing some.
What's the chance that we can limit the second meeting to pertinent updates and public comments, and that's
Exactly.
it?
The second meeting, I think, would be very brief.
Does anyone else think about these ideas? How about superintendent?
I mean, I think it's a fine idea if we can in fact meet. Right? Because the same maybe.
Cat murdering.
Well, no, I didn't mean that part. I mean, like, at that point, coronavirus-wise, are we even gonna be allowed to actually?
Do we have a global pandemic policy?
We do.
Is there a possibility to conference in for somebody who might not be there?
We could do that, and I bought Zoom today, so we could figure something out where it could be, you know, a phone conference. Yeah, should we need to go ahead? No? Okay, I can't?
Well, I think you can, but I talked to Rebecca about that today.
Okay.
And there has to be a place, like a public place for
That's
people
right,
to be
where
able
people
to
can
come to and
come
do
to
the
listen.
meeting.
Right, which may become problematic
Right.
if the school is closed.
I asked her about a big screen out on the field.
So I don't disagree, I think it's a great idea,
But I
but
did
here's
ask her
what
about
we're
that.
running into. Like in 2 weeks,
You might be able to do that with
right.
You might be able to do that with Zoom if you just publicize the number and let anybody call.
I think it's an access issue because it's a public meeting and everybody has to have access to
I think you have to be
it. So
able to
for
have
you
a
guys to all Zoom
physical
in
place.
would be legal if it's okay in your bylaws, but the public
Yeah.
has to be able to view it. And you can't guarantee that they have that
And that's
access.
what Rebecca says, you have to be able to, like, have a place
Guarantee the
to.
access.
So what if we said we try to do that if it's feasible?
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
put
If we
something.
can't meet, we can't meet.
Right, we can always cancel it, right, based on the circumstances, but, so, like, I'm wondering, 2 weeks from this Thursday is March 26th, and the schools are closed. So, we can do it, I mean, we can have it here. Right, gonna be super clean, you got it. What?
Will that create an issue if you're saying you're closed, but you're opening your school to the public? I'm just giving a perception that,
Or the gathering gets bigger than
yeah, I'm just
people.
it's just a perception piece.
Outside.
Well, it's up to 250 people now,
We
is
could
it?
meet in the Board of Ed conference room.
Correct, yes, we could. We wouldn't be opening the building up, we'd just be opening, yeah.
We're all working on it.
Yeah, we could do that, we could hold it in the BOE conference room,
So
like we
we
do
look
budget.
Like take all the chairs out so you don't have to clean the chairs and standing room. only.
Standing
Yep,
room.
There's
pretty
no,
much. Don't sit down.
And bring the sprayer in after the meeting.
Exactly. Hopefully I get it by then.
Sarah, that's our workspace.
The war room. I'm sorry.
Could we possibly do Wednesday the 25th instead of Thursday the 26th? Because Could everybody do that possibly?
Are we talking 6:30?
6:30?
Wednesday's dry.
Why don't we just plan that one and then see what happens?
Okay.
We'll plan the next one after.
Okay. So I'll post it as a special meeting because it has to be. And I'll post it as, good. Call to order, and we will have coronavirus update, adjournment.
She's got it in She's like, I'm not
Okay.
She's like, I'm
Okay.
not sure there's ever be.
Special.
Did we ever like this year?
Great idea, thank you.
We met this year.
I don't know if you need to vote on that or not, so why don't you just go ahead and do that just in case
Just in
we're
case.
supposed to.
You did.
Chair vote on a special.
Can the chair just call a special meeting?
Chair can call a special.
We're calling a special meeting. Thank you. Okay.
So are we gonna do one at a time? Like we're gonna call, well, I guess it doesn't matter.
We're gonna call
I'll
that.
call a
We're
special
gonna call that.
meeting.
Oh, boy. Oh, settle down.
Okay. Is there any future business? Okay. Now we have executive session. A motion to go into executive session to discuss the topic of school safety and security, and we would also like to invite the superintendent to join us. Is there anyone else who would like to invite?
No, not this evening, thank you.
Sure.
I am. Thank you. On the second.
All in favor? Scott and Sue. We have any
Sure you don't want
discussion?
us? We don't mind.
We don't mind.
Well, you don't mind?
No, we don't mind.
I'm sorry.
Not for this topic.
I can
Can we invite Daryl to show him that, please?
Okay, let us.
I don't care, I'll do it.
No, you don't have to.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna go before I got more, right?
We're looking for an amended motion to go into executive session for the topic of school safety and security.
7:05,
You
Mr.
know where to find me, I know where to.
Ask that the superintendent, principal, and the two principals, and it was there.
And Beth.
Oh, and Beth.
Join
Be
us.
invited into session, so.
Yeah, let's just second.
Okay, discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.